Yo, what's up? Welcome back to the Paycheck to Profit podcast. Today we're going to meet and hear from Luke Abbott. He is a very well-known and highly respected partner in the CPG industry. I don't want to get into all the details because I want him to speak to it himself, but this guy has accomplished so much in his career. He continues to grow both his businesses and his personal life into something just really fantastic, and I'm just really excited to have you hear more about his story. So without further ado, Luke, welcome to the show.
Robert, I am thoroughly ecstatic to be here. Thank you for having me today.
Of course. Yeah, I love our conversations. I think that's a funny thing, people should know is that like we've had plenty of meetings, but we do it based on our current roles, right? Like I work at New Seasons, I'm in the grocery industry,
Yep.
You're also in CPG on the other side of the table. And so, when we meet, we talk about all those things, but we also go into so many other things, life and finances. So I'm excited to see where this goes, but why don't we start off with a little bit of history about yourself and, take us out, like what started everything for you?
I've had a lot of starts throughout my life and excuse me. I think I was an entrepreneur from a young age, probably from like 9 years old, selling radios that I'd buy at the swap meet and clean them up and bring them out, and worked for a family business. And so that was my start. It was like, I think I truly believe, Robert, that people who start working when they're younger, they develop a hunger, and to work, to show up, to be all in. And I'm grateful I had the opportunity to work from a very young age. And I think that the start was really this idea of not being an employee so much from the beginning and it actually helped me be a better employee when I had to be an employee because I never had the what I call like the employee mentality, right? Like I was never clock watching. I was always all in. If I was part of a company, even if I didn't own it, it felt like it was like part of, that was something I was all, it was like, if I'm doing it, I'm all in on it is I think what it created. But career-wise, as I think you were kind of aiming at in your question, my first real job was working for a company called Monterey Provision when I was 21 years old. And I fully did not intend to do that for long. I was going to college at night. I was passing the CPA exam and thought that I would work at a firm, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I thought that would have been my future, and it was my dream. And but I really don't have the personality for accounting, so that was not good. But after working at this company 11 years, I had, because I think truly crediting back to like not having this employee mentality, but more like, even though I was an employee for 11 years, I was just all in, and whenever they asked me to do something, I was just like, yes.
Sure.
It gave me opportunities that others didn't want to do, and that put me in a position to buy this company, Monterey Provision, when I was in my early 30s. And
wow.
And part of that too, Robert, I have to give plaudits to Rhonda, I think it was Rhonda Byrne, I think it was her name, the author of The Secret. Reading this book called The Secret changed my life before I bought the company. And it was something where I always was kind of a man of faith. It's probably my parents' faith, and it really wasn't internal, but it was this idea of the law of attraction is like to believe you receive even before you received. And so the company was about ready to be sold to Tony's Fine Foods, which was eventually bought by UNFI.
Sure.
And all cash offer, and all I had was $100,000 I could scrape together. And I remember the owner, the founder, being like, "You're seriously are gonna, like, you want me to not take the all cash offer and sell you the company?" And I'm like, "You will do this." And so,
how did you sell that?
Yeah, that was a really hard thing to do, because he was just like, he was very focused on this is his life's work, right? He had sacrificed marriages, his relationship with his kids, and this was everything. But the selling of it was really just this idea of carrying on the legacy.
Right.
And when you sell to Tony's, your name, Monterey Provision, will not be on the wall. It's going to be that name will be forgotten. And trust me to take this forward, to be something so much more than even what you thought it could ever be. And that those conversations, the fact of how I showed up for so many years, I think eventually convinced him. Though it was a little bit of a struggle, Robert. We were the day
Yeah.
he was supposed to sign the papers. He was leaving for Hawaii the next day, and so we get to the end of the block at the end of where Monterey was located,
Yeah.
and he turned left, and I went right to go downtown to meet with his attorney. And I called him on his cell phone. I'm like, why did you go left? He goes, oh, I'm hungry. I need to go get samples from Costco, from the different sample booths. And I'm like, no, we don't have time for this. He's like, well, I have a haircut in an hour and a half. And I'm like, well, we get down here. So he got down there. His lawyer's like, are you ready to do the documents? He's like, nope. And he says, I have a haircut I got to get to. And I'm going to Hawaii tomorrow. And the lawyer's like, I'm not comfortable. He's like, no, I'm signing the papers. And he signed it. And then he went and got his haircut and flew to Hawaii and sold me 100% of the company, a $30 million food distributor at the time, for $100,000 in cash. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. And
Whoa.
Crazy.
So it was just straight up 100,000, no financing or anything.
Okay, so he carried back the paper for a lot more money, but I had to pay for that out of the profits of the company, out of the cash flow of the company.
Okay.
And so I had a 7-year payout. He forced me in, it was just totally good. I had to sign a long-term lease on a warehouse that was way too small and inadequate. And that was always kind of this albatross, because I had to keep that even as we scaled across the country. I had this like 14-foot high ceilings and 5,000 foot square foot freezer here, 2,000 square foot. It was just a mess. So what an opportunity. It changed. Probably there's like these moments in life, and I wonder if you've had them too. It's like where like your whole life, the destiny that like you see it. It's like, wow, this is mind blowing, amazing change to my life. I grew up poor and always worked so hard for every little penny, and then to be in this position of having a platform that was already $30 million. I was like, wow, This is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's definitely life changing. I can't imagine what you must have been feeling at that time. Like when you're, what do you say? Like in your 30s, right? Like young 30s, and you scrape together, like you said, $100,000 and be able to buy this multi-million-dollar company. It's amazing. But
it was time blowing.
It's also not by accident. I mean, you talked about the book Secret, but that aside, I mean, you already said it, like you put so much work into it. You went all in. So the fact that you were doing that showed, and I knew when I asked the question, like, how did that happen? Like, you have a cash offer from Tony's versus the employee that's been there forever. And I knew you were going there, but I wanted to hear you say it too, is that you did all that work, you put in the effort, and you're going to carry on that legacy versus Tony's is just going to wash away the brand, and it's just going to be absorbed. So
that's it.
It's a great opportunity, and it wouldn't have happened if you didn't have that mindset early on that you needed to just be all in and treat it as your own company, because honestly, it ended up being your own company.
right. I remember my dad a few years in, like, where do you get a real job at a real company? And then I'm just like, I don't know. I like it here. I feel like I belong, and I don't know where to lead. I have no clue, but I have a feeling it'll be good. And thank God it was.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then, so you ran that for a while, and what was the trajectory of that?
That was a crazy trajectory. I bought it, and for the founder, it had been a lifestyle business. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a lifestyle business. And I was down, my wife at the time, down in Costa Rica. We were down there for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and thought, hey, we can run the business wherever we are in the world. And I remember being in Italy doing that too. And in Costa Rica, we get a call, and basically Sprouts is like, hey, Sprouts Farmers Market was a growing account, but not the biggest at that time for us. And like, hey, if you want to continue servicing us, you need to grow across the country. We can't have you be regional anymore, just Southern California and in Arizona. And then in that same trip, we get a call from one of my employees that she had a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old foster child that she couldn't keep anymore. And she said, hey, could you take them? So I'm like, okay, let's take the foster children and let's commit to Sprouts. And that was like, it wasn't a lifestyle business anymore. It was a race. It was a race across the country. And I feel I need to share this, Robert. I didn't seek out people to help me, and I should have, because I made so many mistakes. I thought I could figure this out. And building, it's very different to go from, Southern California and Phoenix to like all the way out to Atlanta, Georgia, right? It was really crazy. So and then the other problem too is when I bought the company, I got a line of credit from a bank, and that was in 2008. when I bought the business. But I remember 2008, there was the implosion of banking. By
Sure.
early 2009, I get a meeting with my banker saying, "Hey, your debt to equity is 14-1 because
Oh,
this isn't going to work." And I'm like, "What am I supposed to do?" And so I started a whole series of I don't know, me trying to raise capital. We didn't actually raise from investors until the last 2 of the 8 years,
oh,
but
okay.
we only had one investor that ever came in. But it was I was constantly racing to raise money all the time. Even at a raise, we were growing so fast. We were going from 30 million to 300 million over an 8-year period. We were,
Wow.
and you can actually grow a food distribution company just borrowing like an ABL, asset-based lending line, right?
Mm-hmm.
But 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 we were growing too fast. We were growing some years 50%, and we were outrunning cash the entire time. So it was a very,
Wow.
very stressful. Cash is everything. It's the lifeblood of being able to your existence on this earth and this society, and running a business. Without it, you're dead, right? So
Yeah.
it was really, really a hard time, and I had to grow a lot through that.
Yeah, totally. And so just thinking through, I mean, the numbers are astounding, when you think about it, from 30 million to 300 million. And I think, like you said, it's stressful. And I remember, I don't know if it was on your podcast or if it was a LinkedIn post, but I know I saw or heard something about your story about your lifestyle at that time was kind of damaging in a way.
Mm. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it wasn't good. And like, I'm hearing it as you're talking about it, like you're always racing, you're stressed,
Mm.
you're working long hours is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
can you want to care to get into what that
Yeah.
really entails, like running a business like that and
Yeah.
operating it hands
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. I'd say first off, I've been through a lot of transformation in the last few years, and that is, you know, I had to. I think we all have to work through our childhood, whether it was good or bad, right? We had to work through it, and I had things were haunting me, and I think the way I was resolving that, so the all in at work was probably excessive, and so I was running all the time, checking every box, traveling incessantly, especially toward the end of my 8 years at Monterey, and especially when I went to KEHE, but even more. It was running all the time, but it was, hosting. I had a lot of fun, and the fun related to what I was doing at work. And oftentimes I'd come home and it wouldn't be much left of me, right? There was just like I need to sleep and recover when I was home. So I feel like I didn't show up as I could have for my family or for myself during that time period. I really don't drink much and don't think I've ever had a drinking problem, but definitely like in the food industry, there's so much of it is around, dinners and
Yeah.
wine. And so just not healthy. And eventually that did catch up to me. I had got a disease called Meniere's that has caused me to lose my
Mm.
hearing in my left ear. For many years caused dizziness, nausea, and just a very, very difficult situation. So it was like I paid a price, but in a
Right.
lot of different ways. But it was definitely, I learned so much. Like I had to go through that to become the person I am today, and I'm grateful for all that. And it was
Sure.
also a very difficult time.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually going to ask, looking back on it, do you think that you would follow the same path? Like if you,
Knowing what I know now,
I'm,
no, no.
do you think that, I mean, do you have any regrets from what you've done though?
No
Right.
regrets.
Yeah.
An example of that is my 28-year-old Tommy, who's blessed us with a beautiful granddaughter and another grandson on the way. And I was talking to him maybe a few years ago about like growing up, and he's like, "Dad, I was always watching you. Like you were busy a lot, but when you were on the phone around me, and I was hearing how you spoke to people and how you showed up, and because I was always listening and learning about how like I wanted to be. There's some things that he didn't want to repeat, and the much that he
Yeah.
did, right, and took from it, and I just realized that this whole thing that I think there's this ideal we try to strive for as parents or spouses, whatever it is, and that we shouldn't have struggle, right? Is maybe some of the premise around that. And what I've learned is that it's the struggle that is actually maybe the purpose of us being here, right? It's how we
Yeah.
grow. It's how we realize what we're capable of. And And so, yeah, my choices brought struggle like to my 27-year-old, 28-year-old, right?
Yeah.
But he also grew a lot through that, and he now has his own business. He's able to work from anywhere in the world, and
That's
he's
awesome.
in an amazing relationship with an amazing wife. And I go, okay, like I get it. Like
Yeah.
I didn't have to be quote unquote perfect. In fact, probably this was the perfect. In fact, and I believe this is all destiny, and all meant to be this way. So,
Right.
so
Yeah.
the exercise of trying to say, well, would I do it differently? Well, yeah, if I knew everything I knew now, I'd probably change it, but I'd probably screw it all up, right? So probably it happened the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, totally. And I think, there's a couple sayings out there. Like one is, life happens for you, not to you.
Mm-hmm.
I really love
Yeah,
that. And I
I
think,
believe that.
in your son's case too, I think that shows how strong and responsible he is, you know, understanding that he was catching all of that information and he could have looked at it one of two ways.
Yep.
He went the
Get up.
right way, where he took
Yeah.
it and made it positive outcome versus going the other way. Like, it really comes down to your personal mindset.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, it reminds me of Think and Grow Rich, right? Like that
Yeah.
talks a lot about that. You have the choice. We always
Yep.
have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And another one actually that I really like, which I think people should know is, if you haven't heard it, it's your children are really like, it, it's what they observe. It's not what you try to teach them by what you
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yep.
So the saying I think is it's caught, not taught. And
Yeah.
so when you really think about that, your actions are going to speak and resonate with your kid way more than what you try to lecture them or say to them or whatever. So
Yeah.
the way you're acting every day is going to make a huge difference and impact into how they grow up.
I agree. Yeah, I look at it and go, hey, my 28-year-olds, I also have a 24, a 14-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And I go, okay, if he came out this good, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so this will be the test, right? Like maybe having more struggle actually does work better. We'll see. I feel like I'm much more evolved now as a parent.
Yeah. 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 It's funny. It will be interesting to see, like you said, but a lot of people that are very successful in business and life, they had struggles when they grew up. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's that adversity that really pushes them, I think, that, and it's one of the things I struggle with too. I don't know if you have this too, but like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously as a parent, you want to give the best life to your kid.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
Then therein lies the problem, Robert.
yes, exactly.
Right?
And, we're kind of going through that right now. And, some of the things that my wife and I are working on with our daughter, and, like, it's too easy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And she needs to have a little bit of struggle and needs to understand that challenges are going to come up and things like that. So we're looking at ways that we can push her beyond and outside of her comfort zone right now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it brings up a story. The investor that ended up investing in Monterey in the last couple of years, he wrote me this check that I really needed at that point, and he's like, you know what, God told me to give you this money. He goes, you may never be able to return it to me. I mean, I get any return or anything from it, but I feel like this is carrying this out because God said to. And a really good guy. And I remember him sharing about, because he grew up somewhat wealthy and created a tremendous amount of more wealth. And he's so grateful for his dad, who took them when they were, I think, maybe in middle school age, to Papua New Guinea, PNG,
Oh,
and
okay.
just lived there. Took mom, the boys, 3 boys, I think it was, and they just lived in Papua New Guinea for a year because he wanted his kids to be grounded. And what a gift, because each of these boys, these brothers, are just the most grounded people in the world. I think that's the challenge, right? And it's like, how do we provide for what our children need, while also grounding them in ways that help them to be amazing human beings and to be equipped for this world to really realize their potential. Because you can't realize your potential if you can't overcome struggle.
Absolutely. Man, that's well said. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I mean, God, we could talk about this kind of stuff all day long. I think mindset has really, like you said, you've been going through some personal growth over the last few years. Same with me. I think, we probably picked up a lot of the same kind of mindset tricks, or like read some of the books that, kind of helped us become different people. I don't know like, just out of curiosity, what's your favorite mindset book or like personal growth book that you could recommend?
personal growth book that I recommend. It's a great question. I'm thinking through, you know, I'm constantly reading books, and I in my mind they get completed. So I don't know if I have a good one to recommend. For me, my personal growth has been a lot more in terms of hiring a really good life coach.
Oh, okay.
Um, that was absolutely core for me, and I spent a lot of money on that, and
Yeah.
and wasn't always easy, but it's like, it's but that was really it. I've I probably have read 300 books, 400 books, right, in the last 10, 15 years. But having someone who is with me on the journey every single week, challenging me, not letting me get away with anything, right? It's like fooling myself has been the number one thing that I've done.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. And then in terms of mindset recently, I'd say, 10x is easier than 2x is
Yeah.
absolutely the most life-changing book I've read, and I'm reading it a second time right now.
Nice. That one's on my list for sure. I heard the author, I can't remember his name, but he was on the Ed
Mm-hmm.
Milet podcast and was
Okay.
talking through it. And yeah, it's definitely on my list. And
Mm-hmm.
I reference a lot of just the little tidbits that I heard from him speaking about it. I kind of come back to that right now as I'm building up my like side business and real estate and this.
Yep.
And so I look at things in a different lens now because of that.
Yeah, and I even just hearing it has caused me, right? But then like really digging into the details, and
Yeah.
one of it is, it's like there's like, if you think about 100% of what I'm doing, 20% of it really probably is in my genius and creates the most value. And that the trick of 10xing is really this idea of continuing to focus on the 20% and like eschewing the 80%, and then do that again. Then again, just do the 20% and the 80%. And if you do that iteratively, you're
Sure.
able to 10x. And so I'm constantly thinking, is this part of the 20 or it's part of the 80? And
Yeah.
if it's part of the
Yeah.
80, it's like, I have a team. Like let's, or if I don't have a team member for that, let's add somebody.
Right.
And that's we've been this year, since reading that book 3 or 4 months ago, the first time, it just really have started to implement this, and I'm already seeing the results in my business, and it's like, so like reinforcing as you get going. It's like a flywheel. You get it started, and then once
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
going. So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that. Just going back really quick, but I like that you recognize, the books weren't really what helped change your life because you didn't have your accountability, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, a life coach and having that person in your life, not everybody's going to be able to spend a bunch of money on a life
Yeah.
coach, or maybe to that level. They might
Right.
be able to do something, but the key is, I think, just having somebody in your life that can support you and
Mm-hmm.
be strict when it needs to be, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
what's the hardest moment you've had with your life coach, as far as like, with maybe some tension between you because you want to do something and he or she isn't saying that's okay.
Yeah. I think again, I spoke earlier about some of the challenges I had growing up and working through things, and one of it was the people that I chose to be my life partner. In terms of, I've been married twice, and I'll be married a third time soon, but it's it was something where I really struggled with the idea of being divorced a second time, and I'd been married first time like 9 years, second time 19 years, and
Oh,
I
wow.
just, yeah, strong commitment that I did not want to get divorced ever again. But yet it was causing me to stay in a situation that was extremely unfortunate for everybody. And it just was so damaging, and, for all of us. And I wasn't able to affect change within the context of the relationship. And it was really that challenging of like, hey, you've tried everything, right?
Yeah.
At some point you set boundaries, and it's time for you to kind of move on. Right. So, um, that was hard to make that decision to divorce. It was my decision to make. It was his to challenge and help me to see what I wasn't seeing. It was a hard one because for me, it was between my God and me, was like this was a commitment, a solemn oath that I made. The first
Right.
time married, I was not a believer in God. At least I don't think I was. And then second time, hey, I was a believer in God. And then it was really I had to reconcile that with God, and say, hey, this is something that I know you hate divorce, and I know this is not where you want me
Sure.
to go. It would not be where you want. And at some point, are you okay with the fact that I put 18 years or 19 years into this and just, just still ended up in a really difficult situation? And I got to peace with that. But my coach was really good. And the one thing he said that got me originally was, you don't deserve this. And I was like, I remember just crying. I was like, wow, like, okay, like I was just going to carry it out, till the end. And then it was just like, okay, like this is beyond what is reasonable, for both of us. And so, she's a great person, and she's doing a lot of work. I've done a lot of work, but we're just not meant to be together. And that was a huge thing. And so that took that decision and caused me to reevaluate religion and my relationship with God and my relationship with myself, and then led me in a really fun journey that's gotten me to where I am today. And Robert, I can't tell you how happy and just centered and connected to myself, connected to God that I am today compared to any other time in my life. It's a true blessing.
Yeah, that's really, really happy. I'm really happy to hear that. And honestly, I see it, in your posts, both on LinkedIn, like professionally, I see the joy that you have when you talk about what you do, this podcast that you're doing, and connecting with people. And then on your personal side, like on Instagram, I see the joy that you have with you and your family and Sasha. And so really happy for you, like truly.
Thank you.
I think it's a great thing, doesn't matter what age you are, you can figure things out.
Right? You can. And that was hard too, like my age and what's going on. And I would just say that, but I've learned, and I wrote about this, I think not too long ago, but it's like, I was really not being courageous in my personal life in so many ways. And with relationship with myself, my God, my family, close friends. And so it's okay, right? There's no courage if there is no fear. And for me, it's been really like my big focus, Robert, has really been focusing on how do I deal with fear? What's my relationship? What is fear? What does it mean? How do I not have it just be riddling me? Like I was so controlled by fear my whole life. And now I would say free from the bondage, but it was a self-created bondage. It wasn't fear. I did this to myself. So
yeah. How did you come to that realization or handle actually attacking fear versus fearing it?
Yeah, okay. And maybe it's not even attacking, right? It's about having a relationship with it. And to be more clear, there's a book called Fear. It's by a Vietnamese monk, and I forget his name. It's a very difficult thing to say. But I read the book, and it had already captured some things I'd already been learning in different ways. Like the Four Agreements is another book that I had read, and it was just this idea of like, fear is a messenger, and when we deny that messenger from being able to speak to us, it's going to get our attention some other way. It's going to cause health challenges. You're going to feel it throughout your body. You're going to have weight. You're going to seek to numb out. You're going to try to. And I was doing all these things, and it's like, so it had this very simple meditation, which is simply to close your eyes and you welcome fear. You invite fear. You feel the fear. For me, I feel it in my chest. I invite the fear to come in and to hear the message. And I literally smile my face. I smile at the fear and I welcome the fear. I'm like, fear, what is your message for me? And some of it's going to be, I call it, my life coach calls it the risk manager. And so there's this risk manager part, like this is given to us by God to keep us safe so we don't die, right? And it's like, hey, I'm worried about fear. I'm worried about A, B, C, D. I have a chance in a mindful way, while I'm smiling at this fear, not being in abject, more fear or fear of the fear, like listening to what it says and then having a conversation with it, and then allowing that fear to pass. The energy passes through. And I never understood this because I thought that it was a lack of faith. I thought a lack of faith was fear. Because how could you have fear if you believed in God, right?
Sure.
You believe that your soul is good, then what is there to fear? And what I realized is that God gave us fear as a messenger. And it's like, and I was just not listening to the messenger. And so again, this is my relationship with God changing too, is like, no, like this is all a gift. It's just here to make you aware of things. And I still have volition to choose what I want to do about it, right? And so now I literally journal every morning, and there's a part in there about fear, like what's coming up for me. And I'll create space for it. I write about it. I listen to it. I move forward. And now so it's courageous because the fear is there, but then I can go, nope, I'm still going to go do this. Or maybe I won't do it because maybe you had a good point there.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And I love that, you're journaling, but calling that out specifically. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, maybe attacking isn't the right word, but you're addressing it and you bring
Listening.
it to the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm listening. That's all I'm asked to do is listen to the messenger. I don't have to do what the messenger says, right? But I can listen to the messenger.
Yeah. Nice.
It sounds so simple, right? And it's like, why did this take me till I'm 50 years old to figure out, right? I'm like, what a waste. But again, this is the journey I was supposed to be on.
Right.
And then supposed to share about it. So thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love hearing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So jumping back to business and
totally.
all of that. So you had Monterey Provisions, and then you ran it for, I think did you say 8 years?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And what happened after that 8 years?
So after the 8 years, Sprouts had become a very large customer. I had grown into other retailers like Lucky's out of Boulder area, and then into Henry's, but then Sprouts bought them too. So I had this challenge of outrunning the growth of Sprouts. They were just in the space; no one was growing faster. And so as we're adding on other chains like Bristol Farms and Lazy Acres and Fresh Time, our friends at Sprouts just kept on growing. So there came a point when I'll always remember this. I had no contract with Sprouts. It was all like a handshake.
Oh, really?
Deal. And so it was hundreds of millions of dollars a year of revenue. And I remember being with the president of the company at Cial in Paris, and he's just like, we're a public company now, and the board's really focused on this markup and that this large distributor has, and your markup is much higher, like double. And I'm like, but I don't have all the same. I make money on selling product, not on buying product, and that's how I've always operated. And it was a good lesson, right? Like I should have changed. The way that KEHE and Unify operate actually is market, and I failed to understand that the market had shifted. That they weren't just playing in grocery anymore; they were playing in the fresh perimeter where I played. And because I didn't learn how to train the vendors to help me make money on the buy side, so I can give a lower markup, I had to sell my company. And so it was a great lesson about like, man, I can have a massive blind spot, and I think I'm doing the right thing because it's right. Well, so what? There's this thing called market, and I wasn't really aware of it. So I sold to KEHE, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how a lot of time to reflect when I was working there for the 2 years I was there about, okay, this is what I did. This is how I could have done this better. And I also just loved being part of the KEHE team. It's an amazing company. It's an ESOP, B Corp, really amazing people. And, I just really, really enjoyed that time. I think you might know Brandon Barnholt, who is the CEO that did the deal with me and at KEHE at the time, and just loved that. And then left there and went to Jimbo's naturally as president there for a while, and then landed here at V-Driven.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a crazy 8 years.
Yes.
All that growth.
Unbelievable.
And
yes.
What a great partnership to have with Sprouts.
They were amazing.
Especially during that time when just that growth and the acquisitions. I didn't know that they were buying those different companies, but makes sense how you can add store count so quick.
Yep.
And just to be along with them for that ride, and also the fact that it was on a handshake.
Yes.
Little crazy to think about. Like, I'm sure you think about it now. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, my bank at the time was like, you don't have a contract? I'm like, no, but it'd be very hard for them just to fire us tomorrow because we do a lot. So it's like, and that's the thing, right? Like that's also a lesson too, in a way. Like it's great to have contracts, but at the end of the day, like I had to earn it, and we did earn it, and so we deserve to be there until the market had shifted, right?
Yeah. Then it's
we didn't deserve to be there anymore. That's kind of shift. And guess what? Like if I had a long-term contract and they were just unhappy, they could have found a way to get out of it, right? That's the thing with contracts. So the thing is, they didn't have to. They had no. You didn't give them compelling reason, but they did the right thing.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. And do you mind me asking? So you purchased it for 100,000 cash
I
plus
use,
some on the
yeah,
back end.
yeah.
Do you mind me asking what the sales price was?
I cannot share that because it's
Okay.
under NDA, but
Okay.
but
Gotcha.
it was a little bit more.
Gotta ask.
It was a little bit more.
Yeah.
I would say this, that it wasn't like private jet money, and that's
Right.
that was a lesson to me too in terms of like wealth creation, and like this distribution is probably the wrong place to create a tremendous amount of wealth too. Like for every dollar we sell, you're doing fantastic if you're making 3 to 4 cents.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, and in our case, with the fast growth, we also had kind of a lot of debt to be able to handle that. And so that had to be paid off as part of the exit as well. So it was,
Sure. Yep.
so for me, it was like holding on for dear life, and was super grateful that we had a successful exit that, paid off all the debt and left me in a good place. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. It's crazy how little money you make in grocery. Well,
Yes, yes.
as a
Or
percentage.
as a percentage, right, right. $300
Yes.
million, like, wow, that's a massive company. I'm like, yeah, the bottom line
Right.
is not that massive. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially for us with our crazy fast growth and what we were taking on.
Yeah. So go from Monterey. How long was it between Monterey and what you're doing now with V Driven?
Got it. So yeah, so I left KEHE on December 31st of 2017, and then worked at Jimbo's 2018, and then
Oh, that's right.
really
Yep.
early 2019 is when I started V Driven, and that originally was like, hey, this could be a kind of a holdover until I find a different position or role. So I was investing in plant-based food companies, which were really all the rage at the time, and then also doing some consulting, and then that ended up growing. So
Yeah. Yeah. So can you share what it is that you're doing exactly with V Driven now? I know, like you
yeah.
said, at the time it was plant-based, but
Mhm.
and consulting, but it's a little bit different strategy now, probably because you
It,
understand market.
yes, it is. It is right. Yeah, right. Understand the market. Good. Very good. Yeah. So it was really fun at the beginning. I was working with like keto and plant based. So both of those have had some struggles as of late. But yeah. So originally it was that, and it was just me, and then I started realizing it was like, this is like the ultimate of exchanging hours for dollars. And so I
Mm.
was like working from 5 a.m. until midnight, and I'm like, okay, and then
Oh,
submitting like a Whole Foods category review, and I'm like, this doesn't even make sense for me to be doing this. So I just started growing the team, and that was the key. So first, we set up a Philippine corporation. We have dozens of people in the Philippines, and then we have the U.S. based team, and just started surrounding myself with people who are really good at things that I did not enjoy doing, but that were really important. So that's been a lot of growth. And so today we have about 45 to 50, that area of team members. We have about 60, 70 brands we work with, and we help in I think 5 different areas. And again, none of this was a vision, Robert. This is the other thing I learned too, is I always thought you'd have to have a vision and this clear view. And it's like, no, I just saw a problem. And it's like deductions were a major issue. Emerging brands, mid-sized brands today that work with us too, have a really hard time getting their arms around like what's going on with all these deductions, which is all
right.
part of this market. This is the market,
Yeah.
right? And so we have a team that all they do and they love to do is just dig through all the deductions and look for, like, help categorize them. But then we also find that like 8 to 12% of deductions coming through are in some way erroneous. And it's just not because the
Mm.
distributors want to steal from you. It's just that it's so complex and so hard. So
Right.
we help there. We have a team that does accounting for companies, probably up to about $8-10 million. After that point, you should have your own controller in general, or accounting team. And that just was in response to what I saw other companies charging in the space for accounting services. It was just out of reach, and just outrageous in my mind. So I'm like, we can do so much more inexpensive. I'm not looking to get rich off of deductions and
Sure.
CPG accounting. It's just more like, we can earn a fair margin and help out the industry. Two key areas that I'm personally involved in. One is doing consulting work. I just did one before this meeting today with you, where we go for 3 hours. We do a deep dive on a brand. We do like purpose, vision, values, and dig into a SWOT analysis. But then from that, we tease out really what we call OKRs, or objectives and key results, so kind of goal setting. Yeah, and that's a really powerful tool we have that we do with emerging to mid-sized brands. And then we do sales and brand management. And I think I was meeting you in your office and coming up to visit you in Portland, is representing our brands into the key 70 natural and specialty retailers in the U.S., which obviously where you work is part of that.
We made the 70.
You made the 70. Yeah, Luke's list. And it's been really fun. We started off focusing on 4,000 stores or chains, and now we focus on just 70. So just the 70 key ones, and try to build deep relationships and build lots of personal connections, and be seen as this group that's helping retailers differentiate by bringing these really cool, first to market kind of opportunities into the market. And we also work with mid-sized brands as well with some key retailers, but the main part of what we operate in is kind of that emerging space.
Awesome. Yeah. And you just were talking about the new and innovative things that you're doing. And I just saw, I don't know if you posted it yesterday, but I saw it yesterday on LinkedIn about your Sprouts pitch slam.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's exciting. You want to share a little bit about that for everybody?
Sure. Yeah. So we've been partnered with from the beginning of the innovation team a couple of years ago at Sprouts. We've been really involved with helping to bring products to market with them, and just truly honored that we talked about this idea of how to get more emerging brands and opportunity at Sprouts, and agreed on doing this pitch slam that V-Driven is, and a number of our partners are working together to raise awareness of in the market right now. And we've already had, I think we posted about it yesterday, I think we've had 30 submissions so far, and looking forward to going through those, and just part of that heart for helping younger brands get a leg up, right? And so there's no cost to participate. It's just us trying to help and be a part of the community. And so yes, we're helping brands, and we're also helping Sprouts, and I look forward to expanding this to other retailers across the country. That would be a lot of fun. We also create unique opportunities. We often, all the shows, we put together dinners and breakfasts, or we're an emerging brand who would probably never get FaceTime with the retailers, able to have an intimate experience of connecting, and we're pretty, we have fun at our dinners, and we also make sure that there's space for people to become known to each other at these events. It's not just like balkanized into like different groups at a table. We really get the group to fully connect together. Yeah. So we have a lot of fun. So we're always looking for ways to be unique and innovative, and to create value. I think I look at it as like a lot of the let's call them brokers out there are really thinking about, how do I get a product on a shelf, and that's what it's about. And for me, it's really about creating value, yes, for the brands that hire us, but it's also for the retailer. Like I want the retailer to feel like, wow, like I'm excited that Sasha from V-Driven, or Emily from V-Driven, or Brandon from V-Driven are coming in, and that's what we're really aiming to do.
Yeah, totally. Partnership in every business, but in the CPG industry is just so important, and understanding that you can trust the people that you're working with, and you, like you said, I mean, getting the product on the shelf is one thing, but do you trust them to help accelerate the growth and be sustainable versus just a one and done in 6 to 9 months or 12 months. That's
exactly it. And so what we say, what we do at V-Driven on kind of the sales front, is that we're just hypothesis testers, right? Like ideally we work with very humble, founders and leaders who don't necessarily know that they've got it all figured out. We're going to people like you, Robert, and getting feedback, and we're creating a feedback loop, and that allows them to show up better, so that once we do get on shelf, we're able to actually sell. And then once we're on shelf selling, that we're testing out different promotional strategies. If it's a bar, maybe it's 2 for $5, 2 for $4, 2 for $6. What drives the biggest promotional lift? But it drives the biggest post-promotional lift. Like really bringing a lot of almost like a scientific method to it, right? And which also includes a lot of feedback.
Yeah, nice. So I kind of want to dig into something you said earlier. About trading your time for money.
Hours for dollars, yes.
Yes, hours for dollars. I love that. I don't know why I haven't heard of that before, but I'm going to start using that now.
I used to be in Amway when I was 17 and 18, and so that they always talked about, they listened to these tapes from your upline, and they always talked about hours for dollars, and don't do that. Sell Amway.
Oh, wow.
Didn't work out for me.
Well, you got the saying, and I'm gonna steal it. So,
Okay.
so you were doing hours for dollars at the beginning. You started hiring out, but at some point, um, just with your growth and like personally, financially, with
Mm,
everything going on, are you doing anything outside of your businesses to create a
mm.
financial stream? Do you have any passive income?
Yeah, good, great question. So in terms of that, not a lot. So much of what I've done has been very concentrated in what I do, my industry. I have
Okay.
an we have over 10 investments that are in the kind of emerging brand space. That
Oh, okay.
no clear view of exits out of that, and I'm not sure
Sure.
those were wise investments or not. I mean, I don't know, whatever. It's almost like when the money that was given to me at Monterey is like, God told me to do this. It's like, yeah, God told me to do this, and let's see where it ends up. And I think there's two of them that probably will have really nice exits in the next 5 years, and so that would be great. There's no passive today income coming in, but definitely
Sure.
could be a nice exit. And then yeah, I've dabbled in property, and it was interesting, Robert. I remember 2 years ago, I was staying at the Hotel del Coronado, and we had this condo that we'd held forever. We paid it off, and so there was no leverage, and we're just getting this like rent, and it was not much, like
Uh-huh.
$1,500 a month. And I was just like, at that weekend, just sitting there, like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. There's no leverage here. I'm not and this money doesn't even mean that much, right, to us at this point. Like it's nice, it's really nice, but it's not that meaningful. It's like, hey, what if we? And at that time, the Hotel del Coronado was building their final kind of like condos that you could actually buy on that property here in
Oh,
San
okay.
Diego. And so
Yeah.
I said, okay, let's do this. And so we sold that condo, we invested it in there, and so we took, I think it was maybe 1.5 million was the purchase price, and we put 400,000 down from the sale of that other property. And then what was nice is we had locked that property in a year in advance. So it
Oh, okay.
actually had increased in value by 1 million in that year of just not even owning
Whoa.
it. So it was like the minute we put on the 400,000, we made 1 million. So that was nice. But it was like that.
It's
And
not bad.
no, the only challenge right now is that it was the model. Every model we did, which was we had a number of friends who also bought at the same time, showed that it would be cash flow positive day one, even with having a mortgage on it, and it has not been. So that's
Oh,
been
really?
so it's been. And I look at it and go, okay, well, isn't that bad? Because if I had to put in a few thousand extra every month, but I'm buying this, this asset that's now worth $2.5 million instead of 1.5. It's not a
Sure.
big deal,
You,
right? And eventually, property in California is always going to turn out okay, especially like right at the beach. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
so I would say that's ideally that will be passive income in the future, and ideally there'll be a nice exit out of that. But that's something I want to do more of in the future.
Yeah. So really quick on the property, are you doing a long-term rental? Like, is it a long-term
Yeah,
tenant?
so it's really interesting because it actually falls under the reservation system for the Hotel del Coronado. And
Oh,
so it's under
okay.
Hilton. So Hilton actually handles all the bookings,
That's why
and
you're not making cash flow.
right. But there's no other. But the way it's set up, there's no other way to do it because
Oh,
they take
okay.
more money from you if you don't use them. Um, but
Okay.
yeah, the hard part there is that there's other condos built like 20 years before where those owners, they never had negative cash flow. It always worked out for them. We just
Yeah.
had, I think our timing wasn't great with kind of like the end of the kind of the COVID travel kind of like slowed down.
Yeah.
Inflation was going up, and so I think there's this challenge going on. And then also like they built a new convention center like attached on to where this place is. So
Oh, okay.
it's going to be okay. But
Sure. Yeah.
it's just really like, this isn't quite what I thought. And it's a good lesson, right? Like I did like sensitivity analysis to my whole projections, and I'm like, hey, even if like the worst case, like we'll
Yeah.
break even. I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, I was wrong. So
And then that thing came up again, that market thing.
yeah, the market thing, the darn market. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Robert. So I think there's definitely this thing about diversification, but I have not been the most diversified guy in my whole life, and it seemed like it's worked out okay.
Sure.
Right? It hasn't. Definitely, there's higher risk because I'm not as diversified, but I've also been just very all in what I do, and so that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
typically it's worked out. So but I could see in the future doing more in property. And I think you and I spoke at lunch a number of months ago, but I didn't even know what you were doing. I didn't know what you did. I had no idea what you did in your spare time, and you blew me away. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. And as we have more cash available to invest, that's definitely something I would want to look at. I think what you're doing makes so much sense and feels so, especially the way you're doing it. I don't know if you've shared it much with the audience yet, but it's in a way that really feels like the risk is mitigated as much as it can be.
Yeah. Like you said, as much as you can be. There's always risk.
Yes, right.
And we actually, our team has been a little bit slow, but we actually just closed on a property today that we signed the documents and the money over. And so really exciting to get that out there. And it's pretty cool. We're converting apartment units into condos, actually. So funny that you were talking about your condo earlier, but
yep.
And in Portland, I don't necessarily want to be a long-term landlord. And so that was, the appeal to me was that it's going to be a 1 to year and a half time where we're converting these, and I won't be a landlord. We're going to sell the units off. So that was really appealing to me. And that is going to be, it's still, so here's the thing, like, it's not passive income,
right?
It's still active. We're working on it. And, that is the end goal. And, why I brought it up is that, how do we create these other streams of income that can be more passive? And for me, this is just like my certain situation. It's just a stepping stone, because at the back end of this, when it does sell, we'll have a bigger chunk of money that we get on the back end from the equity that we built and the work that we put in. And then that will then be a tool to go and use and create a passive income stream.
Beautiful.
So, like, it's all part of the plan. This is just one step of it, but I love that you're thinking about it. That conversation that we had at lunch, I remember it. And, we started talking about syndication, and I think we started talking about 401ks as well, and like self-directed 401k versus.
I have one of those. Yep.
You do? Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Highly recommended. And and I think I've used it to do some investments in like actually almost like a syndicated property development like you've done. And that was good. And it actually does give me a very little bit of passive income every month. And I'm like, that's really cool. The ability to be able to write a check to whoever I want, whenever I want. There's like, there's two sides of that. Like, one is I can get like really excited about something and who knows if it's the right thing to do. But it's also amazing to be able to have that freedom. And I use a company called Entrust. It houses it, and it's not very expensive in terms of what they do. And it's been great to have that freedom.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Although what I don't have is I really don't have any investments in stocks and bonds or anything. So everything is like in these non-traditional investments, or like in my property investment or in my company. So I'm curious about that, but I think there's a certain point at which you go. There's a traditional way you go if you're like middle class, upper middle class, and this is like, this is your path, right? And then there's different paths you take as wealth continues to grow, which can be equally as valid based on where you're at. So I think it's it's not just like, it's not just using the one size fits all approach, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's that's a really good point, because like you said, you're kind of where you're at in your life. It's going to help dictate kind of like which path you can go down, like what you can go down. And based on how much cash you have, how much extra income, or like your risk tolerance on what you can and can't do. But one of the cool things that I have seen is that there's something similar to syndication, but it's like a fractional, it's almost like, I can't remember the name of it now, but you can buy apartment buildings, but not have the minimum investment that you might have as a, $50,000 or $100,000, depending on what level you're in, right? They can do it at much lower rate. So then it gives that extra entry point for a person that isn't available or able to make that heavy investment at the time.
Which is fantastic, right? And I think that's I'm sure you dug into this when you were young too, but I remember like being like 18 years old and digging into like compounding interest and the
Yeah.
power of that, right? And the idea of like, it can feel so insignificant what you're investing in at the beginning, right? And yet like what can happen to that in 10, 20 years, 30 years is breathtaking. So I think that's something to always be aware of in my mind. It's like, it's like, you are where you are. You do the best you can where you are then, and ideally, you're moving up in terms of the amount of cash you have to invest. But you have to start somewhere. And it's like,
Right.
I think there's this. We look at people, maybe idolize them, who they have like the mansions and live the private jets, and it's like, I just want that. And it's like, no, there was all these, unless they inherited the money, there's all these steps
Right. Right.
that they took, and I don't know, that comes to mind.
Yep. Well, we're coming up on time, but I wanted to ask my random question of the show.
Great. Okay, I'm ready.
So for you, what's your favorite location that you would like to travel to, and like a place that you can always go to no matter what time, or like how you're feeling, like that's going to be the place that you go to with your family too, like.
Yeah, so it could be so the idea of a location for me is, I live in Encinitas, San Diego area, and this is actually like earlier today I was working on the beach. So going to the beach and being near the ocean for me is where it's at. I posted on LinkedIn this morning. I was literally there with a Starlink dish, like working from the beach. There's a bad reception there, and for me that's like just being there with the water and with that sea air and everything is so invigorating. Doing that alone, doing that with Sasha, my fiance, or doing it with my kids, or all of us, it's like that's our special place.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Any last words of wisdom for the guests?
Yeah. I as someone who grew up extremely poor and didn't have a lot, it just, this life, if you are all in on it, and open and willing to take some risk, it is just beyond belief what is possible. The life that I've lived, the places I've traveled, the people I've met, the groups I've been able to be a part of, has just been so mind-blowing. And I truly believe that we all have a destiny, and it's our job to kind of like allow that destiny to play out and to realize it, and be looking for like the hints of where you're supposed to be going. And I'd say, like, there's something to be said for a much more simple life, like, paying the mortgage, living in the neighborhood, having the 401k, and doing that. And I think that's a beautiful place, right? And I also think that for me and for what I've chosen, and I think for more people than probably realize it, there's another path that can be truly exciting. And if you think about like what are we doing here in life, Robert? It's like we got one shot. Like, let's just go all in on it. Let's just see everything that has to offer. I don't think we're going to starve. We're going to figure this out. Trust in that. Trust in God. Trust in yourself, and your friends, and whatever. You're going to figure it out. But why not live to the fullest, right? Push it to the edge.
Love it. Love it. Man, thanks for the conversation. It's crazy that an hour went by like that.
Really fast. Thank you, Robert. That was a fun conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And everybody else, we'll catch you on the next episode.